Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phils had an off night last night, and tonight they start a huge matchup with the Miami Marlins in South Philly. Plus, we'll talk about another pitcher that needs to step up. And not a specific one, anyone. Please, do they have it in them? And we have off the pole to wrap it up on an outfield conversation we had earlier this week. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Phillies. If the intro will fire, we'll run it.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies, and the intro finally decided to play. Appreciate you checking us out. Locked On Phillies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Connor Thomas. I'm your host. You can hear me on the radio on 97.5 The Fanatic here in the Philadelphia market. See me occasionally on the television on NBC Sports Philadelphia, credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member, host of Locked On Phillies for 2 years, and happy to be back with you again for another Philadelphia Phillies playoff run, it looks like. Well, playoff run, yes, but where will they be seated? It's a tough question right now, and they've got a huge matchup coming up with the Miami Marlins to get everything started. First pitch of tonight's game is at 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time between the Fish and the Phils, and you can listen to every pitch of the Phillies' hometown radio broadcast of that game on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies. I want to take a look forward at this series in general so we get a good look at what the Phillies are up against and why I think they have a really good opportunity to win a couple more games here. So in tonight's matchup, very interesting matchup of young pitchers. Christopher Sanchez will be on the mound against Eury Perez. And Eury Perez has put together an outstanding year. Now, for some reason, the Marlins wanted to keep his pitch count down. I guess they were worried about him not being available come playoff time. Well, you got to make it in first, folks. And they're not quite solidified in their playoff standing yet, but Eury Perez, young right-hander for them, has some outstanding numbers. Christopher Sanchez has some outstanding numbers as a young lefty for the Phillies as well. So the pitching matchup in tonight's game is essential to deciding this one. Perez has a 5-4 record. Sanchez a 2-3 record. I mean, rather comparable. Wins, whatever. Not an importance to that. But the ERA for Perez is a 2.86 over just about 78 innings pitched. Sanchez has a 3.48 over about 75 innings pitched. The whip is a little better for Sanchez at 1.04. That's because he's only walked 12 batters all year, and Perez has walked 25. But Perez is at 1.08 for that whip. Sanchez has struck out 69 batters. Nice. And Perez has struck out 95 batters in 78 2/3 innings pitched. He's going to strike people out. He's given up 13 home runs. Sanchez has given up 13 home runs. It's kind of funny. It's like looking in the mirror here a little bit between Sanchez and Perez. Perez is better numbers-wise because that ERA being, 0.6 lower is a very good indicator of who's having the better season. But at the same time, Sanchez, no slouch. And the lefty-righty difference, I don't know, it's weird. Their numbers are very, very similar in a lot of ways. Just Perez strikes out more batters. Sanchez walks less batters. Better stuff for the Marlins. Better control for the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, take your pick. It's a pretty even pitching matchup, and you'll love to see that. I'd love to see Sanchez come out and have one of those shutdown games for him. But the offense certainly goes in favor of the Philadelphia Phillies, especially if Trey Turner is back. Congrats to Trey Turner on the birth of his youngest son now, Tatum Turner, who was just born over the weekend. That's why he wasn't playing. He was on paternity leave. Could be back tonight. Rob Thompson said he expects Trey Turner to be back some point in this series with the Miami Marlins. Some point this weekend is what he actually said. So, hey, hope he's back in the lineup tonight. Haven't seen anything yet to indicate whether or not he will be. But let's look at some of the leaders for these offenses to see who's who and who to watch out for. Home runs, the leader for the Marlins to watch out for is Jorge Soler. Of course, he hits moonshots. He's got 35 this year. Kyle Schwarber's got 41 to lead the Phillies, though. Advantage, Philadelphia Phillies. Luis Arraez batting .353 is the leader in average for both teams. He's unbelievable. But Bryce is top batting .294. It's respectable. It's right around that 300 mark. He might push over 300 by the time the season's over. But, yeah, advantage in the average to Luis Ariz and the Miami Marlins. And Jorge Soler has 71 RBIs. Schwarber has 90. And there's a couple other players on the Phillies that Soler would be trailing with the 71 RBIs. I always look at RBIs as the big indicator of an offense's ability. And the Phillies just are better at driving runs in. So they're better at scoring. So they're better at winning. And the records will show that. The Phillies come in with a 77-62 record. The Marlins 72-68. But it's a very interesting matchup here between the Philadelphia Phillies tonight on the mound and the Miami Marlins, I should say. It's not just a matchup between the Philadelphia Phillies. No, Phillies and Marlins. Tomorrow, the pitching matchup is much more in the Phillies' favor with Aaron Nola going against Johnny Cueto. Cueto's washed, but Nola's Mr. Inconsistent. Who knows what you're going to get out of that one. And in the final game of the series, I want to see if the Marlins have named the pitcher yet. No, still undecided against Ranger Suarez. I'll take Ranger Suarez against undecided every day of the week, unless that undecided turns out to be me. I still got some bullets left in this arm. I think I might be able to duel with old Ranger, but I don't think the Marlins are calling me up anytime soon. So the next two games, you have a distinct pitching advantage. I've already told you I think you have an offensive advantage in the series. So go out and take care of business tonight. And if you win this game of the series, well, the Marlins are going to be hurting. And they really need this because when you look at the standings in the wild card race, the Phillies are 5 games up on the Arizona Diamondbacks, who now have the last spot in the wild card race. The Cubs are 3 games up, so they're 2 games back of the Phillies. Then the Diamondbacks are in the final spot. The Marlins and the Reds, both a half game out. The Giants, not dead yet, 2.5 games out. The Padres, who the Phillies took care of earlier on in the week, they're 7 games out. They're not going to make it. So you really got a couple teams to worry about. I think the Giants are dead in the water too, but they're not dead mathematically, really. 2.5 games could be made up over the course of the final 20 or so games that these teams have. But the Marlins are a half game out. They've got another team that's a half game out with them in the Reds, and they're chasing a team that's that half game up on them in the Diamondbacks. A huge series, and you look at it for the Phillies, you're 2 games up on the Cubs. If you don't beat the Cubs, you're going on the road for the wild card series. So this is a huge, huge series for playoff implications in the National League. Both teams really need this. The Miami Marlins are going to be playing hard for this one. You got to play harder. You got to go ahead and do what you did against the Padres. Do what you did against the Giants. A team comes in with playoff aspirations, whoop their rear ends. Show them why you don't want to come to Philadelphia and play this time of year. Show them why this team is still a World Series ceiling team. Show them why the Philadelphia Phillies are going to be the top wild card seed in the National League. It's your opportunity. The series do get easier down near the end of the year, so you can make up for some lost time here, but I don't want this Philadelphia Phillies team making up for lost time. I don't want the margin to be razor thin. No, I want you to take hold of that top wild card spot. You're holding it by 2 games right now. The Cubs, they're with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're currently playing tied 0-0 in the top of the 4th. They lost to the Diamondbacks last night. They have 4 with the Diamondbacks. If the Diamondbacks continue to handle the Cubs at Wrigley, you continue to win, you could be 4 or 5 games up on the second-place wildcard team by the end of this series if you take care of business against the Marlins. I mean, with under 20 games left, that would be a really big margin to work with and an easy schedule playing the Mets a bunch and everything, the Pirates down the stretch. You do have the Braves a couple times, but the Cardinals again, I think this series is going to go a long way to determining where the Phillies end up in the playoff seeding. I mean, every series the rest of the way is, but yes, a big opportunity. Now, I'll tell you this, right? Looking at the ESPN analytics and the line, Phillies are favored -140 on the money line, 60.6% chance to win tonight. Tomorrow night, Phillies are no money line yet, but 67.6% chance to win, and Sunday's matinee finish, they're 64.1% chances to win. They're favored in all these games. Take care of business, go out and win. And part of that is going to be another pitcher stepping up. Zack Wheeler's been outstanding lately. He's going to probably end up in the NL Cy Young conversation. But one ain't enough. Come postseason, you need a couple of guys who are ready to step up and give you great outings. So who's that guy going to be? We'll talk about it coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. First of all, I want to tell you about my friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, it's the exact same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. right? Come on, you can't have brake pads that are too big. You don't stop fast enough. You don't have, mirrors that don't hang the right way. You can't see anything. Headlights that don't fit in the headlight caps. It's simple. Stuff needs to fit for your car to work right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. What you do is you just add your ride to their My Garage tab. It's a tab right on the website, and you look for the green check on parts to know that the part will fit. If it has the green check, part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop on eBay Motors, with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, so Zack Wheeler's been outstanding lately. He had a really good start against the San Diego Padres in that finale of that series. The Phillies win 5-1. Wheeler dominates. He battles. He went into some deep counts, so he didn't really get that deep in the game. But I feel very confident right now. If you have a chance to set up your rotation for the wild card series, Zack Wheeler goes out there. He's going to dominate whoever comes up against him, especially one of these lesser offenses. I get the Cubs have been streaking. They're not the Braves. They're not the Dodgers. Any team you see in the wild card series, you probably have a better offense then. So, Zack Wheeler, great. Doing an outstanding job. I feel confident in him because he's had a string of this. But who else is going to step up? You have a lot of options, but you have to see someone do it. I think the guy that you got to see do it is in this series with the Miami Marlins. He's going to throw tomorrow. And I think it's Aaron Nola. The veteran ability of Aaron Nola. I know he's all over the place. I don't want people to think, because I know someone's going to jump down my throat every time I bring up, Aaron Nola, he might be able to pitch through the postseason and get hot and say, he hasn't been good all year. I understand. I don't trust Aaron Nola as far as I can throw him, and I can't throw him that far. He's a large man. He's a professional baseball player. But I know what I saw last year. I know what I've seen in previous years. I've never seen Taijuan Walker pitch deep into the playoffs. Ranger Suarez has not been the guy this year, and I have a much smaller sample size. He pitched out of the bullpen at points last season. Ranger Suarez is probably my number 2 guy that needs to step up, but Aaron Nola is by far and away number 1. Christopher Sanchez, too young. He'll probably end up in the bullpen along with Michael Lorenzen. I need Aaron Nola to be that number 2. I need to go into the wild card series knowing that Wheeler throws, Nola throws, ball game. We ain't playing game 3. We're not seeing you on a third time. No, we have our top 2 guys going. They're top 2 numbers. They're just absolutely monsters. And Aaron Nola hasn't been that guy this year. Well, he has a couple more starts, probably about 3 to 4 more starts, depending on how quickly the Phillies clinch a playoff position in order for them to work it out. And he's got a big one tomorrow night against the Marlins. Listen, I don't know if the Phillies are winning tonight. Yuri Perez is a very good pitcher. They could easily have trouble with him. So with that in mind, Nola's got to be ready to go out and say, hey, I might have to go get us a win for us to get a chance to win this series. You can't lose tonight and then have Aaron Nola implode tomorrow. And you also can't go into a playoff series only trusting one pitcher. Ask yourself honestly, do you trust Taijuan Walker right now with the ball in a postseason series? I trust him to go deep into a game. Do I trust him to win the game? I don't know. It's a coin flip. And that's not a lack of trust. I just don't feel bullish about Taijuan Walker right now. Ranger Suarez, I haven't seen much from him this year to the point where I'm like, yeah, he'll shut down anybody. You need 2, 3 guys that are, when you give them the ball, they're dogs. They go out there and they shut down whoever, whenever. Braves, all the way down to if you face the Giants somehow. The best possible playoff team to the worst possible playoff team, you dominate them. And the Phillies only have one of those guys right now in Zack Wheeler. Now, a couple weeks ago, I don't know that they had any of those guys because Wheeler was inconsistent and didn't know what you were seeing from him. And then he's just been on a tear as of late. He's like, so I forget who it was, if it was Bleacher Report or if it was one of those baseball media companies just came out. It might be the actual MLB account. Came out with their pitcher power rankings, and he was number 8 on it in all of baseball, not in the National League, in all of baseball. He's starting to garner some attention, and he'll be in the Cy Young conversation. He'll probably be top 5 in the National League in Cy Young voting. But you need more than just Zack Wheeler. So who's going to be the guy that steps up? To me, Aaron Nola's got to be that guy. And if there's a secondary guy, I'd love for it to be Ranger Suarez, because I think even if Taijuan Walker doesn't step up, he's an important part of this team. Last year, the Phillies didn't really have an innings eater. They didn't have a guy that you knew would go out and get you 6, 7, 8 in his sleep. They had Zack Wheeler, who looked really good at points, but had to be shut down late because he had some arm fatigue. They had Aaron Nola, who was still a little bit back and forth, but looked really good down the stretch. He had games potentially where he didn't get you all that much. When he blew up, he still blew up. Now, he was very good in the postseason until the last 2 starts of the year, but he wasn't, to me, Aaron Nola, even when he has a high innings count, I don't see him as an innings eater because he always got like that chance to implode. Suarez wasn't that guy. Bailey Falter wasn't that guy. Zach Eflin ended up moving to the bullpen. Like, Taijuan Walker's a big body pitcher who can just go out there and eat up innings. So even if he doesn't prove that he's going to be a shutdown guy come postseason, I know he can at least save the bullpen in his starts. Lorenzen, I think, is 100% going to the bullpen. I don't think they're running a 5 or 6 man rotation. So I'd imagine Lorenzen and Sanchez will both end up in the pen come postseason time. And then if you need them in an emergency to throw, they can always give you a start and throw like 3, 4 innings. But yeah, my hierarchy of who needs to step up: Nola 1, because Wheeler's already stepped up. Suarez 2, Walker, I guess, 3. And that's all you're really looking at, because I think that's your 4-man rotation heading into the postseason. I want to let you know again, Phillies take on the Marlins, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight in a huge matchup. And you can listen to every pitch of the Phillies' hometown radio broadcast of that game on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies. Now, coming up, we're going to jump into an off the poll on a conversation we had earlier this week about the outfield spots. It's going to sound a little tricky. I'll explain to you exactly how I'm going to put the voting options down because I do feel that there are really only a couple of set options. So I want to make sure I cover all of them, but I also want to make sure I don't leave it too open-ended. It's just like who plays the outfield, because there could be a billion combination of who plays the outfield. But off the poll is just a segment where we're going to put out a poll question for you guys to respond to over the weekend, and I'll get back to it on Monday. So we'll have that coming up as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. One more time, do want to let you know, Phillies, Marlins, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. You can listen to every pitch of the Phillies hometown radio broadcast of that game, the matchup between Christopher Sanchez and Yuri Perez. You can hear all of that on the SXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies, and you can hear the Phillies hometown radio broadcast. You can hear the call just like you're listening to the radio here in Philly from anywhere, thanks to our friends at Sirius. So go ahead and check that out. Now it's time for Off the Poll. So the way Off the Poll works, if you're not familiar with the segment, is I'm going to put a poll question up on Twitter. It'll be at LO_Phillies, which is the Locked On Phillies main Twitter account. I'll retweet it from at Connor Thomas 975. You can see that down here in my little lower third if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, just listen to me again, at Connor Thomas 975. Just search Connor Thomas on Twitter. I'll probably be one of the first ones to pop up. Wonder how many other Connor Thomases are out there. Who knows? You can find me. It's pretty easy. But I'll tweet the poll out. I'm not going to tell you my thoughts today. I'll tell you the question, but I don't want to bias anyone. I don't want to make an argument that as you say, oh, you know what, actually I think he's right, let's go this way. No, I want to know your current unbiased opinion. This is like a sterile sample in the lab. You don't want to contaminate it with anything. Because my opinion might be dumb. And I might see something on the poll and say, oh, wow, okay, I guess I'm totally wrong the way I'm thinking. So we'll get back to on Monday. And Monday, the final segment of our episode, will be reading the responses, or reading the percentage of responses, and me kind of breaking down what I think about what you think. So with that in mind, here's Off the Poll for this week. So there's an interesting outfield situation. Nick Castellanos is going to play right field. I'm also going to assume, for the case of this Off the Poll, Jake Cave is not in the equation. I don't think he's as good as these other guys. I think he's a bench bat at best. I'm honestly considering giving Derek Hall, I don't know, a week or two's worth of play at the major league level to see if he's a better bat, because Jake Cave, solid defender, he's not as good as Marsh, Pache, or Rojas. So there's a 3-man rotation, right? Marsh, Pache, Rojas. I think Brandon Marsh is going to play. So you have 4 options on the Twitter poll. Here are your 4 options for what should be the Phillies' playoff best outfield lineup, I'll say. best outfield lineup. Doesn't mean other guys won't play. Doesn't mean these guys have to play every day. But their best possible outfield lineup come postseason is going to look like one of these four. Would either be, so we'll go Brandon Marsh in center, Rojas in left. Brandon Marsh in center, Pache in left. Brandon Marsh in left, Rojas in center. Brandon Marsh in left, Pache in center. Super simple, right? It's just, will Brandon Marsh play center field or left field? And who will play the opposite spot? Will it be Pache or Rojas? Works out perfectly because those are 4 options and 4 spots. So go ahead and check that out. I'll put that out after the episode gets posted and everything like that. And you can respond to that. And we'll have a good look at what I think will be a very interesting poll response. And will give me some insight into how the fan base is feeling about some arguments I've had this week on the radio when it comes to the outfield spot. So we'll talk about it on Monday and the results of the Marlins series and all that good stuff. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies. Oh, and go Birds! Eagles season. Let's go. E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles!